So you've started a save game on Football Manager 2024 outside of the top divisions. You are in the lower leagues and you need some tips on how to manage in this area of the game. Well, you've come to the right place because today we're going to run through a handful of tips which will make you an even better lower league manager than you already are. So let's have a look. First up, we need to focus on transfers, and this is key because you should not be spending any money on transfers if you were in the lower leagues. I've started a game here in the Vanarama North. So you really don't spend any money. Basically, until you get to the Championship, if you're in England, or the second tier is a good for any of the big teams. If you could probably not have to spend any money even in the top tiers in smaller nations until you focus on Europe or the continental qualifications if you're playing outside of Europe. So you basically, for your transfers, you want free transfers, loans, and in particular trials. So any player who is potential who is potentially someone you were looking at, you want to put them on trial for 2 weeks, get a full view of them, get your coach report up to scratch, and then you can decide whether it's worth buying them or offering them a contract at least. So you want to focus on free transfers. You want to focus on loans, particularly towards the end of transfer windows. You are going to get some much better players who are desperate for a loan move for very, very cheap or free, depending on where they're coming from and what sort of player they are. But you want to focus on getting your loans in towards the end of the transfer window, really bolstering your squad with some young players from higher leagues to really fill out the team. And as we said, free transfers. Do not spend a single penny on a transfer fee until you get to the Championship if you're in England. And even then, you're only going to really, when you get towards the top of the Championship, be spending any real money. If you're in League 1, League 2, the Vanarama National or the North and South, you can get by on free transfers and loans. And which players are you looking at when you're doing these free transfers and loans? Well, the further down you go, the more pinpoint you need to be on a certain attribute or a certain style of player. So you really want to find players with one big selling point. Don't look for players who are good across the board. You want someone who is really, really fast or really strong in the air. They're the kind of two key areas you want to focus on for your players. So you want your midfielders and your strikers to be fast, or your wing-backs and your midfielders to be fast. You want someone in the centre of the park who can actually handle the football at his feet. But really you want your strikers and your defenders to be really strong in the air, either really big or really good at heading. Everything else you can kind of just push out the window. You just want to focus on these two big selling points, or maybe some three if you kind of count someone in the midfield who can actually pass the ball. With that in mind, we'll cover sort of tactics that you want to go into later on, but you want to focus on these sort of players, and you really want short contracts with high player turnover. You don't want to sign someone in the Vanarama National or the Vanarama North who is really, really good on a 5-year contract, because if you are going up the leagues, by the time you get to that 3rd, 4th year, he's not going to be up to scratch anymore. You want 1, maybe 2-year contracts at most for the vast majority of players, and you want that high turnover. You probably want to be having everyone on a 2-year contract and having them staggered, so half your squad leaves after 1 year, the other half leaves after 2, and then another half after a third, and keep staggering it like that. So you're constantly refreshing your squad, and anyone you can actually sell rather than just come to the end of their contract, it's probably worth doing so just to bring in some money, because it is costly down at the lower end of the game. So with that in mind, I'm going to say don't focus on youth players. I'm not saying ignore youth players, but don't focus on youth players. You don't want to be bringing someone in with bags of potential when you're on the 6th tier, because that potential is relative. So if they've got 5 stars in the 6th tier, by the time you get to the 4th or the 3rd tier, they're probably a bench player, because you will have brought in better players as you've gone along, and you won't have the facilities to develop them into their full potential anyway. So don't worry about youth players. Experience is key, and that doesn't necessarily mean old players, but anyone who has played and has the adaptability to play as well. You want to look at those kind of players. So don't go for young players with bags of potential. Go with a proven quantity who can drop straight into your team and perform from the off. Now, we talked about tactics. Basically, keep your tactics simple. Play to your strengths. If you've got a fast winger, get a tactic that's going to make that fast winger the best he can possibly be. If you've got a striker with a big old head on his shoulders who can jump up and win high balls, lob it forward to him, get people running off his shoulders, use that sort of play. You don't want to. There's a myth that you don't have to have complicated tactics. That you have to have complicated tactics to do well on Football Manager. Keeping things really simple, particularly the lower down you go, where your players just aren't up to standard, really is key. And obviously, if you've got those players with those really big selling points, where it's just really fast or really good in the air, you've got to remember the rest of the teams around you will have really poor players as well, so that will make them even better. So if you've got someone with a 15 heading and he's playing against loads of players who have got single-digit heading, he's going to be really, really good. So make use of him with your tactics. Get wing play, balls over the top, Route 1 style. There's plenty of options around for tactics, but keeping things simple and focusing on your players' strengths is definitely something you should do generally in Football Manager, but particularly if you are in a lower league team. And with that in mind, it's probably worthwhile playing for set pieces, especially if you have, again, that 1 or 2 key threats in the air. The more set pieces you get, the more corners, the more free kicks, the more balls into the box where you can get men forward, pile men into the box, put the pressure on the probably weak lower league defences that you're going to be facing, the better and more optimal your game will be, and the amount of chances you'll get and therefore goals you'll get by pure blunt force trying to just pump the ball into the box and get the guy with a big head to knock it in. It will work if you focus on the strengths of your players. And obviously if you haven't got those players who are good in the air, you probably aren't going to want to play for set pieces. You're going to want a different style of play, but I'm going to go back to why haven't you been looking for those kind of players in the first place. Okay, next are a couple of things that are going to, 1, aid with loans, and 2, aid with money. So the first one is getting a senior affiliate in. You can get a senior affiliate, keep badgering the board for senior affiliates. Even if you've already got one, ask them for another. The closer you are to when you join the team, this will be harder. So if you do it on day 1, they're probably going to say no. But if you've been there for a year or 2, they will probably start just listening to you because you've already won them promotion from a couple of leagues, so you know what you're doing. But get a senior affiliate in, because the higher the club that you get a senior affiliate in, the better the quality of youth players they're just going to send to you every season, and it will cost you nothing, and you can just get players on loan from a big club. So get yourself Manchester City if you can, and just get their youth players coming in and tearing up the Vanarama National. It will be worth it in the long run, and by the time you get to the point where you've outgrown that relationship, you should be in a really, really strong position. And the final point I'm going to say is, when you are lower down, pre-season friendlies against big clubs to gain money pre-season, because in a non-league game or a really lower league game, you burn through money like nobody's business. And if you fill the coffers up at the beginning of the season with these pre-season friendlies to make money, it doesn't matter if you lose. You obviously want to put in sprinkle in a few friendlies where you're going to gain a bit of morale from winning, but getting the money in is going to be key to really stopping you from going bankrupt towards the end of the season, and it will allow you to hopefully have a higher wage budget for attracting some free transfers. And obviously, speaking of budgets, anything you get in your transfer budget, you don't want to be spending money, because it's pointless spending money on players at this level. You will get someone equal or better for free. There's a constant churn of free transfers coming through. Move everything from your transfer budget into your wage budget. Maximise what you can offer players, and if you're doing short contracts, you constantly have a turnover as well, so it will definitely all come together and get you promoted from the lower league. So there are my 8-ish, I think, tips for lower league management. If you've got any more, let me know in the comments. If you agree with some of these or disagree, again, get some conversation going in the comments as well. I'll respond to everything I can. And please let me know if you are doing a non-league save or a lower league save, who you are managing, how you're getting on, and when you're going to win the Champions League. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Sort It Out SI channel, and I will see you on the next video.